Welcome to the FitnessFest Podcast. My name is Tyler Valencia. I'm the president of KIPS and Time to Train Fitness. We have a fan favorite of FitnessFest today. We have Dr. Dan Ritchie on the podcast. He's going to talk about his background, how he started the Functional Aging Institute, and all that great stuff in there. So first, Dr. Ritchie, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I absolutely love doing this stuff.
Yeah, so let's kick things off. Same question every guest starts with. What's your story in fitness? Can you give me a little bit of background on yourself before you started the FAI? Sorry about that.
Yeah, I got to go really all the way back to high school. I was a high school athlete, and like a lot of kids probably had a dream to continue playing, but I knew I wasn't big enough, good enough, fast enough. I had a realistic aspiration, but I thought I wanted to work with athletes, train athletes, coach athletes. And in the early 90s, the whole strength conditioning and athletic training fields were just beginning to take off. Mm-hmm. So I went to college with that in mind, got a degree in fitness and sports medicine. And I was fortunate enough to be able to stay at a small Division I school. I was at Southeast Missouri State and worked as a strength coach for a year. And I quickly realized this is not what I want to do when I grow up. I can't do this for the rest of my life, and kind of fell in love with the academic side of performance and training. And so I left to finish my master's degree at University of Wisconsin-Whitewater. And while I was there, I realized I actually really do like training athletes, but a completely different kind of athlete. And I fell in love with training people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. And this was early 2000s. So those people in their 40s and 50s were the baby boomers I'm talking about all the time. But I remember Don, who was 72 years old. So he would probably be around 90 today. And he came to me with a really unique fitness goal. He wanted to be able to tie his own shoes again. And when I dug into it, it really was, I want to be able to tee up a golf ball, and I want to be able to pull the golf ball out of the hole after I make a birdie putt. He couldn't get down to his own feet anymore because he'd had 4 knee replacements. Now, I know that sounds weird, Tyler. He wasn't an unusual human. He only had 2 knees, but he'd had one of them replaced 3 times.
Oh my goodness.
So you can imagine the scar tissue, the joint range of motion issue. He couldn't get to his own foot, right? And so after 4 weeks, he comes in, he's like, "Hey, Dan, check out my shoes." Still to this day, Tyler, I'm telling you, that's one of the weirdest things a guy in his 70s has ever said to me. Check out my shoes, right? I'm like, I don't think he's got the latest Air Jordans. Sure enough, I look down, new sneakers, laced shoelaces. I hadn't seen him wearing shoes with laces. By the time I get back up to his eyes, he's got tears in his eyes. Now here I am at 24, 25, tears in my eyes. And I'm like,
that's awesome.
This is ridiculous. Like I'm crying over shoelaces, but I realized I changed his life more than any college athlete I had ever trained, and I was like, these are the kind of athletes I want to train for the rest of my life. He was an 8 handicap golfer, by the way, which is amazing. And he just had a functional limitation he needed help with. And so that really led to then me getting my PhD and led to eventually me launching the Functional Aging Institute, because I want to train more trainers to be able to do that, to impact people's lives in that way.
I dig it. Something that has been kind of a reoccurring thing with the last couple guests that we've had is talking about the state of education at certain points. We are very fortunate with this podcast that we get a lot of pioneers in the field. And something that immediately came to my mind when you were talking about going through school, working with different populations, was I'm thinking about the education at that point. What was active aging education in the industry at that point when you were just like, okay, I like this audience, I want to learn more about it? Was there as much as there's now, or is it just getting going? Was there still a lot of things to be discussed and worked on?
Yeah, that's a great question. When I came to Purdue in 2002 to do my PhD, I could not find a course, a textbook, a training manual on training balance for older adults.
Wow.
I just couldn't find it. I mean, I had people in their 50s and 60s coming to me saying, I want to keep downhill skiing, keep water skiing. I don't feel as athletic. I don't have as good a balance as I used to. And I could not find any resources for that. And so what I was trying to do was take my performance-based knowledge of training athletes and translate that to, well, how do I train balance for older adults? And it just really wasn't out there in the early 2000s. And when I came to Purdue, my intention with my PhD was to study balance and essentially put out the textbook for training balance. And in 2004, Dr. Deborah Rose put that book out. It's called Fall Proof.
Nice.
She wrote my life's work. And so then I realized, okay, well, it was awesome. I love the book. I still use it. And it's been a foundation for how we teach balance. Cody and I went through the Fall Proof instructor program and got certified as Fall Proof instructors. And it's been foundational for how we teach and train balance. And so Dr. Rose has become a mentor of mine. She spoke at our first Functional Aging Summit conference in 2015. So no problem with the fact that she wrote the book that I was thinking needed to be written. She did it. And so I highly recommend that book to any trainer that wants to train balance. And it's Fall Proof. And so that started sort of the beginning of materials starting to come out as people started to realize we need to look at active aging and functional aging and fitness for people over 60. And how do we maintain strength and function and balance and power and all these different domains, because it's not just about fitness. And so the fitness industry, I think, is still slow to realize that there's a huge opportunity here. The fitness industry is still focused on youth and vanity and weight loss and six-pack abs and sometimes crazy competitive things. And there's nothing wrong with any of those things in most cases, except for the fact that they don't focus a lot of times on what people over the age of 55 need, right? They're not focused on, balance and function and activities of daily living and things as exciting as raking your yard and mowing the lawn and, carrying your groceries in and picking your 2-year-old toddler grandson up off the floor. And that 2-year-old doesn't hold still, right? Like they wiggle and they squirm and they want to jump out of your arms. And, these functional tasks that I think sometimes the fitness industry just isn't even looking for, right? Yeah. So I think I continue to say it's the largest opportunity in fitness history, and it's kind of sitting right under our nose. It's right here in every community. There are people that need fitness, and they need it desperately, but we don't always communicate, I think, sort of what our program can do to change people's lives.
Yeah. You hit it on the nose, in my opinion, with what the fitness industry focuses on. And don't get me wrong, I think we have the same mindset with a lot of it's good out there. It's great. I think a lot of it kind of works on a little bit too much on the trainer and what I think they're more interested in instead of what the clients are more interested in. And don't get me wrong, it's always great to increase your knowledge base, but is your client that's over 50, 55, 50, 70, are they going to be utilizing this education you're getting? And I think that that's part of that business aspect that some trainers miss out on. They are thinking too much about, I really, really like this kind of education, but my client's not so much, but I might try to force it on them. But let's continue on with your story here with starting your own business. And I believe you have your business partner, Dr. Cody Sipe. Was there any type of education in business that you both went to prior to, or were you guys both kind of like, okay, we got this opportunity here, let's take it?
Yeah, well, I mean, we made the mistake I think a lot of people have made, right? Sort of the mentality of if you build it, they will come. If you open a studio, people will just flock to it. Well, we're going to be the only fitness health club, personal training studio focused on the over 50 market, so they'll all come. And of course, everybody listening is probably laughing because we know that's just not how it works, right? I mean, you can open the world's greatest restaurant, but people aren't going to just show up until they know you exist and they know why they should come. And so we opened Miracles Fitness, our personal training studio, in 2007. I I don't recommend you open a small business while trying to complete a PhD. It's probably not the recipe for success, but we did it. We got the entrepreneurial bug. I think the reality is, I think we thought we'd get it open much sooner than we did. Of course, we didn't realize how long it can take to just sign a lease and get a space built out. That took a lot longer than we expected. We made a lot of mistakes. So we opened our training studio. And then about a year and a half later, we completed our PhDs. So we had that sort of off our plate. And the challenge with PhDs that I think a lot of people don't realize is you essentially complete school. You finish all the coursework, but then you have this huge dissertation looming over you, which can be a very big research project with human subjects in our case, a lot of variables. And then you have to write this massive paper and then, of course, defend it in front of 4 PhDs who are not just looking to give out PhDs. It's not quite like getting a bachelor's degree where, the college is looking to give out bachelor's degrees. You pay for your 4 years, show up for classes, get your degree. It's a little bit more rigorous than that. So we sort of were in that time period where we had a lot of freedom with our schedule and flexibility. And so we got the entrepreneurial bug, opened a studio. We've since now trained somewhere north of 2,600 clients in the last 14 years. And that sort of allowed us then, honestly, to really do what we wanted to do, which was become a platform and an education company for trainers. So when we opened Miracles Fitness, we really did it by sort of saying, we've been telling the fitness industry nobody's doing this. We keep telling people somebody should open a studio to train older adults. You should really focus on training older adults. And we kept saying, maybe we should listen to ourselves and just do it and show people it can be done and it can be successful. And so then we did it. And then a few years later, we decided to start really educating the industry as to this opportunity that you can add to your existing fitness business, or it can be your someday future fitness business. And we've done both now over the last 7-8 years through the Functional Aging Institute.
Nice. A lot of hard work. I can imagine a lot of hard work there. And with each business owner that comes on the podcast, a question that I have to ask is, how did things go over the last year in terms of adapting and potentially creating new opportunities for yourself?
Ask that one more time.
How did the pandemic affect both the in-person and online education platforms that you work on?
Well, I mean, yeah, I would say it's very different depending on, and I'm thinking of this as the 2 businesses I run, right? So for the Functional Aging Institute, online education for the first 3 to 4 months exploded, right? Yeah. And in fact, I think a lot of trainers are like, okay, now I have the time to take your course I've been meaning to take, so I'll get around to it. And I think some of that was thinking, well, I'm going to get reopened here in 4 to 5 weeks, so I'll jump into all this online education. And of course, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks later, people were still shut down, still closed. They're like, oh, well, now I'll take another course from you, or I'll do an online workshop, or I'll attend the Functional Aging Summit for the first time. I've never been able to attend because it was just too expensive to travel, or I didn't want to take time off work, or all the excuses people have for not going to live events. Now they had no excuse because they're like, I'm actually not having to show up to work, and so I can do an online event. So for the Functional Aging Institute, it was really a great opportunity for us because online education was something trainers were just gobbling up. And the Functional Aging Summit, for example, in 2020 was our most successful event ever by far because we had 900 attendees. Normally 200 is a success for us. And so we don't have a hotel to pay for. We got no flights to pay for. We got no dinners out for speakers. I mean, it was just like, all the typical expenses you have with an event were gone. So it was very successful for the Functional Aging Institute. On the flip side, Miracles Fitness, our studio, was experiencing the same pain that all the studios across the country were experiencing. We're not open in person. Eventually, we reopened in person, but guess what? Half our clients don't want to come back because they don't feel safe, or they're being told not to, or their kids don't want them to, or their doctor's telling them not to, or there's just a long list. And some of them were willing to train online with us, but many of them were not.
Mm-hmm.
And I think many of them were in the mindset of, well, I'll wait a couple more months till it feels safer. And of course, now in hindsight, we know a couple more months is still in front of us for some people. Here we are 14 months later, and some people still don't feel safe to return. And if you've been waiting 14 months, what's another 2? What's another 3? What's another 6? What's another 10? And so we have some clients who have essentially just quit, right? They have not trained online with us. They've not come back in person. And so that's been a real challenge. And I know a lot of fitness trainers have experienced this. People are not returning to normal. The other thing I think we have to realize is it might have taken them 2, 3, 4, 10 years to finally commit to a positive health behavior of working with a personal trainer. And they might have only been doing it for 1 to 2 years. And now we've interrupted that for 12, 14 months. And so to think they're just going to return to that healthy behavior may or may not happen for so many of our clients, unfortunately. And so I think we have to keep trying. We have to keep offering. We have to keep inviting. We have to keep encouraging people. And now that, many people are vaccinated, hopefully they feel safer. But I know some still are not returning. And so it really has been quite different. Functional Aging Institute, online education, huge opportunity, big explosion, really did not hurt that business. Miracles Fitness, our live in-person, train clients in person, definitely hurt that business. Even with online training, it still hurt that business because not everyone jumps to online training. And I think I've heard it said correctly a number of times now. An online personal training client is not the same as an in-person studio training client. And so you can't just flip a switch and say, well, all my in-person clients are just going to become online clients. Doesn't work that way. We're not all wired that way. Some people like to be in person with their trainer, and they don't like to be online, via Zoom or technology. They don't want to do an online workout. They don't want to jump on YouTube. They don't want to do any of that. So it has been a real challenge for that aspect of our business, for sure.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing all that. That was really, I'll say, something that anybody can take for it. If you're doing online education or if you run an in-person business, I'm sure that there are definitely pieces that people can take and really learn from. And now in the podcast, I kind of want to go back because we are just getting to where the Functional Aging Institute started in your life. What was kind of that like with starting this business? Was there a plan for let's get X amount of courses out and let's see where it takes us? What was kind of your guys' business strategy going into opening a company like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think our primary strategy, because January of 2014 is when we released the Functional Aging Specialist, and that was our first and our foundational certification continues to be. We have 34 countries now where we have certified functional aging specialists, which blows my mind. We're not thinking about that when we launched. What we were really thinking about in 2011, 2012, and even early 2013, we started to have fitness business owners coming to us saying, how are you doing this? How are you training so many clients in the middle of the day? One of the problems in the fitness industry is people can't keep good trainers because the career opportunity is really quite broken, right? If you want to be a successful trainer, you got to be willing to train clients from 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. and then come back and repeat that from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m.
Yep.
Well, that might sound reasonable for a 23, 24, 25-year-old, but you get to a certain age and you're like, if I want to settle down and have a family and maybe get married and have kids, I can't have my free time be from 9 to 5 in the middle of the day. It just doesn't work long term, and people burn out. And what we were discovering was if you train mostly semi-retired and retired folks, they want to come at 7 a.m., 8 a.m., 9 a.m., 10 a.m., 11 a.m., noon, 1 o'clock. You can have a trainer have a full schedule from 6 a.m. to 2 or from 7 to 3 or from 8 to 4. I mean, like a conventional lifestyle career.
Mm-hmm.
And we were able to keep our trainers for 5 years, 8 years. We have trainers now that have been with us for 10 years. And so I think other fitness entrepreneurs were looking at that and they were saying, this business model seems to be working much better than what is typically broken in the personal trainer industry. But what we realized was we really needed to start with a certification. We needed to start with that foundational education, because when we tried to sell that business model, when we tried to sell business coaching, when we tried to teach our business model to people, they just couldn't quite wrap their heads around it. And a lot of times they came back to, well, can you just tell me what the trainer certification is I need? And of course, that didn't exist. And so we got into the business of trainer certification, trainer education, continuing education, with the bigger mindset of, if we can train and equip 1,000 trainers, that will eventually lead us to 50 business or studio owners that want to take that certified training model and turn it into a business. And that really is what happened. So in January of 2014, we launched with the functional aging specialist only. We had visions for eventually having a group exercise specialist. And then we had a vision for a couple of specialty courses. And really with our end goal being, we want to do business coaching, business models, teach people how to do this really successfully like we had done. We didn't want a franchise. We just wanted to help people with their businesses and help people create a business they enjoyed. And so starting with the foundation certification is really where we started. And I think now with over 4,000 trainers in that program in 34 countries, now we start to see, because there's somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 business owners that we've impacted their business, either through coaching, through direct business models, through mastermind mentorship. And so that's really been exciting to see.
Wow. And how many courses total do you guys have?
Now we're over 20 courses, wow, believe it or not, which kind of blows my mind. I mean, I did the math the other day. I was like, well, if we wanted to have a promotion or a webinar or, something for every course every month, we don't have enough months in the year because we have too many courses. So we now have multiple courses on balance. We've got courses on power training. We've got courses on stroke recovery, joint replacements, all sorts of different topics that we know come out of training, this demographic. If you're going to be a functional aging specialist, you're going to run into someone who's a stroke recovery person. You're going to run into a joint replacement person. You're going to run into somebody that needs power, balance, all these different things. So we now have continuing ed courses on just about every applicable topic, and we're coming out with more just about every month. We have 3 or 4, in fact, on the docket for June and July.
Awesome. That's really great to hear. And with a story like this, I feel like this is a great part to ask about mentors in your life that have helped shape how you view the industry, view education, and even view business. Have you had anybody like that in your life?
Yeah, I've had several. In fact, I tell people all the time, you need to have a mentor or a coach, just like we encourage people to have a trainer or a coach. Why would we not have one ourselves for what we need to be working on? And so I've had several over the years. Steve Thalls was my first business coach, and he was strictly a business coach. He wasn't a fitness business coach, a fitness marketing coach, but he looked at the overall numbers of your business and what do you need to do to increase sales and what do you need to do to increase leads, and helped me work on my business instead of in my business. And at that time, I was spending a lot of time working in my business. And then Bedros Keuilian, nice, who launched Fit Body Bootcamp, and I know has keynoted at FitnessFest in the past. He was my mentor and even Cody's mentor for about 2 years. And he was actually the one who said, he said, I think you guys are ahead of the curve. He said, I don't think the fitness industry is recognizing the massive opportunity with boomers and seniors. And they're just thinking it's a nice little senior fitness niche, and they're not seeing it. You guys are ahead of the curve. And he really encouraged us to launch the Functional Aging Institute as a education certification company, and then add the business coaching later. And his vision for that really proved to be correct. He said trainers will buy continuing education, trainers will buy certifications, but trainers don't necessarily understand to buy a business model concept or business marketing. That's a lot harder to sell. So he helped us with that. He said, and you're just ahead of the curve of where the industry is even seeing it. And even 7 years later now, we're starting to see people are just now starting to wake up to the reality that our country's getting older, and like all the baby boomers are over 55. Where have they gone? They haven't gone anywhere. They're just not coming to health clubs anymore. So, and then we've had others. I mean, I consider Mark Middleton of Growing Boulder a great mentor and friend, and an expert in defying aging and all the ageism we see in our culture, and sort of rethinking how we look at marketing for aging. And then there another one that I always have to mention is Craig Valentine, who really was a great mentor of mine in the online fitness space in terms of how do we communicate online, whether it's online fitness education, online programming. He was a huge mentor of mine, and really helpful in terms of systematizing your day, right? How productive can your day be if every hour is critically important, right? And how much can you do with just 1 hour if you're really, really efficient with it and productive? And so, and that's been huge for us, because Cody and I, we launched a company that's now in 34 countries, and neither of us have ever worked full-time in the company or full-time on the company. And yet we're now worldwide, and we speak at fitness conferences all across the U.S. And so I think being really efficient with your time and how you use your time is really critical. And Craig Valentine certainly is the expert on that.
Nice. I have to chime in on that part first, because that's actually something that this year I've really focused on, with giving each day kind of a purpose and how I organize my schedule. Because before that, I felt like I was just randomly doing things throughout the day, and I didn't feel like I was getting anything accomplished. And then I started watching a couple videos on YouTube, and I had heard about how Elon Musk, he does, I think he calls it block scheduling, and other high-level individuals that do that. And I kind of came up with my own system to give each day a purpose so that I can accomplish ultimately a lot of content creation throughout the week, and making sure that I do all the other things that help pay the bills. So with scheduling, 100% on board. And I think that leads into the next part that I want to touch on from the things that you mentioned about the business aspect. I know that both of us have spoken at FitnessFest on business related courses, and I really hope that more people that do listen to this podcast do take advantage of those types of courses as FitnessFest starts to incorporate more of a business track into it. Because that's what we honestly, I think for more fit pros need more business education to help them with getting out this knowledge and education that they have. You might be a phenomenal trainer. You might have all these credentials, and that might be the piece that you need help getting out. How do you let people know that you can help them with their golf swing, or help them with picking up the grandson, granddaughter, items like that? And that's the missing piece. A lot of the times when we speak with individuals is like, well, how do I do it? They don't know those steps in between, and they might have seen something, but if you listen to people that have accomplished a lot of these things, you can learn a lot, and you don't have to recreate the wheel. Sometimes you could just take some advice from somebody that's done it. They're going to give you their system, and you're going to see a lot of success for it. And I do one more item that I want to chime in on is the I'm going to call it a business in a box, because what came to my mind was when you were talking about this business model and being ahead of the curve with it. I remember when I worked for a company it's called Nesta, and they had programs like that. That it just wasn't the education, but is how do you implement this into your business, attract new clients, and we would always call it behind the scenes a business in a box,
Yep.
and they were kind of popular, not ultra popular, because obviously I don't hear about them anymore. I haven't worked for that company for a while and I haven't heard about them, but these business in a box ideas can be very practical for individuals that might not be strong in certain areas. They might really enjoy the education, but what about the implementation? So it's great that you mentioned this, and really, hopefully people that are listening to this episode can look more into it, because that might be the piece that you need moving forward into 2022, 2023, and into the future. But let's get back to you now. Talking more about you. So you got all these great mentors that have helped you along the path. It's great. And I like that you mentioned that one of your mentors was not in the fitness industry. I mentioned this in the podcast quite a few times, that one of my mentors, he's not from the fitness industry, but he's somebody that pushes me, gets me outside of my comfort zone, but he was a high level executive and he enjoys giving back. There's many individuals out there that are high level business individuals and they enjoy giving back. That's one of the common traits that I've really found with people that are the mentors. So I really appreciate you mentioning that. So let's get back to something you talked about with the speaking circuit, because that's always a popular topic. A lot of the guests that come on the FitnessFest podcast, they're speakers at FitnessFest, other conferences. You also hold your own conference. What advice do you have for individuals that are like, man, I want to do that. How do I do that? What is that first piece of advice that you give them if they want to speak on the circuit?
Well, I tend to say if you want to speak at fitness conferences, you probably need to attend a few more. I think sometimes people think, oh, well, I have something to share. I have something I could teach. And I think that's true of all of us. But I think you have to get to more events. I probably attended 8 events before I ever spoke at my first event. And so I think if you've been attending Fitness Fest for 10 years, great. But you probably need to attend a handful of other events just so you can get out there and get connected. But then I think, honestly, the biggest thing that events are looking for is someone that can offer a topic, can offer a presentation that is going to be unique, but also not so unique. I think sometimes people make a mistake. They're like, oh, well, I can teach a session on this. And the fitness conference person is like, well, we might have 3 attendees that would be interested in that specific a topic. So it has to be broad enough, have broad enough appeal that your conference attendees are going to be like, oh, I definitely want to hear that. And so for fitness conferences, I think the first fitness conference I ever spoke at was Midwest American College of Sports Medicine. And the conference doesn't pay speakers anything, but they're looking for submissions that are practical, right? And so my talk was my experience training clients with MS. And so my bullet points were practical examples of things I do in my training sessions with my clients with MS. And it was well attended. I think I had 30 to 35 people attend that session because it was practical, it was hands-on, and I told real testimonial type stories. And so if you have content from the clients you're training and the actual real examples you have, those tend to be interesting to fitness conferences. We don't need, the 19th presentation on how to do the push-up. We just don't need that, So I think you have to be willing. You also, I would say, and this is the hard part, Tyler, you have to be willing to be rejected and rejected a lot. Keep in mind, if Dr. Dan Ritchie is consistently rejected by fitness conferences, that you're going to be too. And so pick 5, 6, 7 different events and apply to all of them, realizing that if one of them says yes, that's great, because it's very likely several of them will say no. I'm still surprised when conferences say, no, we don't want you to speak. No, we're not interested in those topics. No, we're not going to have you speak this year. I'm like, interesting. So you never know exactly what fitness conferences are looking for. And so part of it is you have to apply to very, very many of them. I mean, there's so many fitness conferences out there. From Fitness Fest obviously is a great one, but beyond that, there are conferences, in California, Chicago, Texas, DC, Boston, New York, all over the place. Florida has several of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so just start applying. And as you get feedback, some conferences are really helpful. They'll give you feedback. We only had room for 30 speakers and we have 90 applicants this year. And we only went with speakers that we knew. What you're going to tend to find is that first time is always going to be the toughest, right? You got to get that first session, that first conference where you speak at. And then you got to do a really great job.
Yep.
Because if you show up and you're not prepared and your talk isn't great, the word gets out. Conferences, believe it or not, people attend conferences looking for speakers for their conference.
Mm-hmm.
And I know Janice does this. Janice attends some idea events looking for speakers and new talent. And so they're out there. In fact, there's a conference in Kansas City. It's a small conference. Might even be the only fitness conference that ever happens in Kansas City. But I know Jill, who runs it, is constantly looking for talent, and not sure how she discovered me, but she did. And then, of course, she's asking me, can I come to your conference? Because I want to look for more talent from your conference. And so that is happening. So when you do get an opportunity to speak, not only do you have to knock it out of the park for that conference, but you have to be realizing that there could be talent seekers. There could be people in the room looking for the next speaker for their conference. So make sure you do a great job. And now, of course, with technology, your session might be video recorded. It might be live streamed. I mean, there's just opportunities for that to spread quickly. But I usually say apply to 6 to 8 conferences for 2022 and see what happens. And don't feel bad about getting rejected, because I've been rejected by pretty much all the conferences over the years. So you will be too, and that's okay. You just got to keep plugging away at it.
Oh yeah. Yep. And one piece that you mentioned, that just to expand on a little bit with your topic, that was actually something that I had to go get advice about, because I asked somebody that does speak on a lot. I can't even imagine how many conferences he speaks at. I know he does at least one a month, and it's some of them that people have never even heard of, but they're big. And I went and spoke with this individual. He's on the URSA board, and I just asked him, hey, I want to get on the speaking circuit. Can you give me some advice? And it was just reshaping the title of the conference. And you might have to do that for each conference, because they have a different audience. So take that advice and think about if you're really passionate about something, but it's such a popular topic. I'll say like core training. I just spoke on it at Fitness Fest, but it's such a popular topic that you might need to reshape that title and a little bit about it. If that's your passion and you really are wanting to get what your viewpoint is on it, you might have to tweak a couple of things just to get your foot in the door. And I like what you said about knocking it out of the park, because that's the truth. Go above and beyond for all the reasons you mentioned. Something that I do at conferences. You don't have to do this, but I make a point to go find the owner and introduce myself, because there's a chance that they might not know who you are, or maybe they did select you. So if you could put a face to the name and just make a impact that they're like, wow, that person really went above and beyond, that just gives you one more opportunity there. And that's something I've done at a lot of conferences. It might sound cheesy, but if it gives you another shot to get more reps under your belt, get your name out there more, isn't that worth it? So I'm putting that out there on top of everything that you said, which was already great for getting your foot in the door at conferences, because it's the truth. You do get rejected by a lot. Yeah.
And the other thing I would add is you do have to be honest about how much value you're bringing and how much value you add, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're unknown and you don't have much of a following, then what value are you bringing to the conference? So you better have a great topic that looks really interesting.
Yeah.
You better have, a YouTube video of you public speaking, because otherwise, why does the conference want you? Let's be honest. A lot of conferences pick speakers based on who's going to sell tickets, who's going to be a draw, and who can promote it. I mean, oftentimes my speaker contract includes, we expect you to promote the conference 1 or 2 times. We expect your following to know about it. We expect social media posts. And so you have to realize you have to be bringing some value. And for new speakers, I always say, don't be that difficult speaker. They're out there. I've run conferences. I've been the difficult speaker from time to time. I know Janice has been like, please, could we get your hand out for your sessions? Oh, you want my hand out? Right. But I don't show up at the conference and expect Janice to have a jar of green M&Ms for me because I don't like any of the other colors. Right. I don't expect to have some sort of ridiculous red carpet rolled out for me because I'm special. Right. Like, I expect to show up and be like, hey, what do you need me to do? And has anything changed? And what room am I supposed to be in? And I show up for my speaking session on time and I actually have what I'm supposed to have, right? Some conferences expect you to bring your own laptop. Other conferences don't. And so you need to know what is expected of you as a speaker, and don't be that difficult speaker that walks in at the last minute and is like, I was supposed to have a laptop to present my presentation. It's like, well, yeah, we told you there'd be a hookup to a projector, but you need to bring your own laptop. So make sure you know what's expected of you. Make sure you're on time. Make sure you know the time zone the event is running in. All of those things, are really important. And these things get out, right? And so you don't want to be an early speaker that gets marked as, well, that Tyler guy, he gives a great talk, but he's kind of difficult. He thinks he's a prima donna. You don't want people talking about that. You want to be a person that, everybody knows is going to go above and beyond and be easy to work with and show up on time and, do what's expected. So,
yeah. Really good, really good. And before I tell a joke that we're both going to laugh about, I have to say that with coming prepared with it and knowing what's expected of you, I bring more than what I need each time. If you are I bring my laptop no matter what, but I bring every imaginable adapter that I can just in case, because you never know what's there. Sometimes there is an AV person, sometimes there's not. Sometimes
you're your own AV person.
Yeah. I've even been at a conference where I helped the AV person. He was having trouble, so I helped him out. And you never know. So just over prepare for those opportunities, because you could just make an impression that way too. Dr. Ritchie came to this conference and he was overprepared. He helped the AV person. They're going to tell somebody about it. You never know who they're going to tell. So now my joke. So it's funny that you mentioned the handouts, because some people listening know that I helped develop the last September, the 2020 FitnessFest online virtual conference. I developed the platform for it, had to get every piece involved with the virtual aspect ready to go. So I do know when Dr. Ritchie did submit his flyer, his for his presentation, and it was pretty late. And so coming around to this last April Fitness Fest, I was being hounded by, since I was not as involved in the virtual conference or Fitness Fest, they were hounding me for my presentation handouts, and I'll tell you that I did not have them ready. And my excuse was, I know when people turn them in. I know when Dr. Ritchie turned his in for the last conference. And I will say that was my small joke that I used you as an example for why I had not turned my handouts in. And it's just very coincidental that you mentioned it. And that was my excuse for Fitness Fest Virtual in April for not turning mine in. But all jokes aside now, let's one more question before we start wrapping this podcast up. And this is a good one, because everybody that's been in the industry, you start to, you learn things and you want to pass on your advice. If you were entering the industry now, what was something that you wish you knew when you started?
Oh, wow. That's a whole nother podcast right there. I think I underestimated, probably in my early 20s, I underestimated the power of stories and marketing. Mm-hmm. not that I overvalued education and knowledge, because those things are critical. I think you need to know how to train clients, but sadly, most fitness degrees come with no business training, or the business training is things like, facility management or facility design, where you put the locker room and stuff like that. It's like, okay, not really business, courses. And I think for me, it would have been getting some business training early on marketing and sales would have been so valuable, because I didn't realize that to be a personal trainer or a fitness professional means automatically you are a marketing person and a salesperson.
Yeah.
Because you can work at a big box gym, you got to do selling, because the big box gym owner isn't selling you. They're just not.
Yep.
The big box gym owner wants you to be busy, but has no idea necessarily how the sales process for training works. And so you need to learn a sales process and be comfortable with selling your skills. You also need to learn a marketing process. And I think too many people in fitness are uncomfortable with both of those terms. They think sales is this creepy, slimy thing, but it's not. I mean, it's like we're helping people buy a different life. We're helping people buy fitness. We're helping people buy health, and like we're helping people buy something they need. So we should be good at that. I'm not your version of a, slimy salesperson. I mean, I think used car salespeople get a bad rap. If you need a used car, you need a used car salesman, so and you need a good one, an ethical one that can help you find the used car you need. Yeah. So if you need a personal fitness trainer, you need someone that's going to sell you that. So I think sales and marketing skills are, we see across the industry, are really lacking. People are uncomfortable selling themselves. They're also uncomfortable marketing themselves, right? They're like, oh, I feel bad, posting on Facebook that I have a personal training program. It's like, well, if you feel bad about it, then you probably shouldn't be doing it, right? Yeah. Like you probably shouldn't even offer it. We need to flip that on its head to be like, no, you should be selling what you offer to everyone that needs it. So if you train people in their 60s and 70s and you do that really well, you should be selling that all day long and telling people, and you want to help more people. And so I think those are the skills that I had to learn. Even after I opened my studio, I needed to learn a sales process. I needed to learn a marketing process. And once we dialed that in, everything else got easier.
Yeah, that's a good one, a really good one. And a small joke about the education that individuals go through. I remember my bachelor's with the facility design. I don't know why it was always stuck out with me, even though I forgot what color the paint was. I remember there was a specific point where you want to make sure you paint the walls a certain color, because active agers, they might not be able to distinguish a wall from the carpet. And I forgot what the tones were you wanted to avoid, but that's the amount of business and marketing that is in some degrees.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And not that you shouldn't have a course on facility design, but at the end of the day, to not have a course on marketing and sales, and sales strategy and teaching people to get comfortable with selling and is just to me a huge mistake. I mean, too many people have tremendous skills, but for whatever reason, they're not comfortable selling their skills, and at the end of the day, it's like selling is not a bad word at all. It's like, if you can help someone, well, you have to be able to communicate that and sell that to them, right? So if you have a product or a service that solves a problem, you've got to be able to convince people that you exist. And so, marketing and sales, I think, are two of the biggest skills that I think fitness trainers don't have. And you can be the world's greatest trainer, but if nobody knows about you, then what does it really matter?
Agree. A piece that I just want to add on top of that is something that really helped me early on in my career was when I was working at a big box facility that had 40 plus trainers working in it, huge facility. And there was we'll call it an education seminar that all the trainers had to attend. And it started off with doing personality typing. So learning about yourself, learning how you interact with other individuals, and then potentially using that information, that knowledge, to then personality trait potential sales, potential customers, because then you can better understand what they are looking for, because not everybody is the same. That's what a lot of people say.
Yeah, for sure.
You're going to want to hear certain things, but also understanding how you can approach it, because you hit it right on the nose. Not everybody's comfortable with it, but understanding how you can package your own PT sales, group fitness class, whatever that might be, is so important to the process. And I use that knowledge to this day, understanding how people want to consume information, how they want to be approached, talked to potentially get something out of them. And it's so there's a ton of them out there. If you are interested in that, you can probably go online, type in personality trait into Google, and pages will come up. I don't know if there's a free one. I actually still have the sheet from that day. I had to go dig it up, but I still have it. And I believe that I've used it in other instances, but that's just one piece I want to throw on there that could potentially help you out. If you are in that boat that you just need a little help with the business and sales, potentially start off with a personality trait survey questionnaire and learn a little bit about yourself. But Dr. Ritchie, before we sign this off, can you give some people some information about FAI and where they can find you on social media, website, all that kind of good stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the best place to go is functionalaginginstitute.com. That's our website where you can get our free starter kit. You can start registering for our free weekly webinars. We do free education every week. So, hopping on our website is a great way to learn about that. And then follow us on Facebook. We're on Instagram as well. If you search Functional Aging Institute on either Facebook or Instagram, you'll find us. Both of those places we post typically upcoming events, upcoming webinars, upcoming workshops, free courses, paid courses. FAI Business Academy we just did a few weeks ago. It was $20 for 5 hours of business coaching. Wow. So all of that sort of ongoing content that we're always doing, you can find on both Facebook and Instagram. But for sure, come to our website. There's free resources there. Like I said, the starter kit, our free weekly webinars, and so much more. So yeah, Functional Aging Institute on either Facebook or Instagram, and then functionalaginginstitute.com.
And then don't you guys have a conference coming up soon?
We sure do. And you can find that on functionalaginginstitute.com. It's the tab FAI Summit, and the direct website for that is the functionalagingsummit.com. And this is going to be our 7th annual,
nice,
which is kind of crazy. We did the first one in Phoenix in 2015 with Janice's help from FitnessFest, and the second one also in Phoenix at the Sheraton Wrigleyville, where I think FitnessFest has been the last year or two, and I think will be again in September. That whole hotel was brand new, and we booked it for the Functional Aging Summit in 2016 with Janice's help, and she liked the place so much, and I think we worked out the kinks for her that she has used it since. So it's a phenomenal place. We'll probably be back there someday when we get back to live events. But this year, the Functional Aging Summit's virtual. The Denver hotels just weren't ready for us to put on a 300-person event in June. So it's coming up in just a couple weeks, June 11th and 12th.
Perfect. So we will have this podcast episode out before then. Thank you, Dr. Ritchie, for coming on, sharing your backstory, sharing your story, all that kind of great stuff. I definitely got a lot from it. And that has been one of the joys for me as the host of the FitnessFest podcast. It's just learning about the pioneers in the industry, that each one of them have something that there wasn't something that existed, and you created something that has grown and have really helped out a lot of instructors in the path. So thank you very much for being our guest on the FitnessFest podcast, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Yeah, thanks so much.